Rogier van der Weyden was born in Tournai, Belgium. He was trained there and he worked mainly in Brussels. He was very successful during his lifetime. His works date from the 1430s to the 1460s. We're going to concentrate on what is probably his most famous painting. It shows the deposition of Christ. It was painted sometime around 1435. It's in the Prado Museum in Madrid. It's a large work for the 15th century. It measures 220 by 260 centimeters. The figures are nearly life-size. The image shows a moment when Jesus, his nails just removed from his hands and feet, has been brought down from the cross. His mother Mary has fainted. Painters usually received instructions on what to paint. It was left to them to decide how to turn these into images. Van der Weyden must have been told to draw a parallel between the suffering of Christ and that of his mother Mary. The compassion of a mother is perhaps easier to comprehend than the death of a god. It brings the story and the feelings associated with the story closer to us. Notice how the figures of Jesus and the Virgin are parallel to each other. The right hand of Christ lays next to the hand of the Virgin, which seems equally lifeless. The other hand of Christ, the left, near the top of the picture, and the right hand of Mary near the bottom, both curve inward. As a result of this double gesture, we perceive the two bodies of Jesus and Mary as one, bracketed by the two hands. This is how the artist has translated into visual form the idea of the shared pain between Jesus and Mary. On the upper right and left corners of the picture, as part of a painted frame, perhaps you can see tiny crossbows, a reminder that the painting was commissioned by the Crossbowmen's Guild in the Belgian city of Leuven, near Brussels. This type of guild was an exclusive man's club of the time. Their gift of the painting to the church was a way of making others take notice of their wealth and power. The painting soon became famous, and in the middle of the 16th century, some 120 years after it was painted, it was purchased by the woman who ruled the Netherlands as regent, Mary of Hungary. In exchange for the painting, she gave the church an identical copy and a new organ. She took the picture to Spain when she retired there. That's why it's in Madrid today. The attention that the artist pays to the most painstaking details is amazing, and it's characteristic of early Netherlandish painting. Notice in the figure of Christ the stubble on his face. The artist wanted to be so realistic in his rendition of details that he has even painted some pubic hair just above the cloth that covers Jesus. On his side, and also on his right hand, we can see the blood that flows from the wounds. It's in the process of changing direction as the body of Christ is brought down from the vertical position he had on the cross and is prepared to be laid horizontally. In contrast with the realism of these details, the arms of the cross are obviously too small to have supported Christ. And the legs of the Virgin are too long. If she stands up, she won't fit in the painting. When one stands in front of this work in the Prado in Madrid, you constantly hear viewers say how amazingly realistic it looks. Rendering details such as hair or clothing hyper-realistically goes a long way towards making us feel that what we see is real. The woman in the far right of the image acts out her grief in an elegant pose that's similar to one that we have seen in an earlier video, in a painting by Van Eyck. Van Eyck and van der Weyden were in the forefront of artistic innovation at the time, and they looked at each other's work for inspiration. The folds on the garments in this figure add to her psychological tension. Folds are among the most beautiful features of this picture. One has a sense that the artist enjoyed painting them, that he could concentrate on them as pure, abstract forms. Let's move back from the painting for a moment. It is surprising that it looks like the inside of a shallow box filled with figures. Why crowd all the figures in such an impossibly tight space if one is trying to be realistic? There's an explanation for this. Religious scenes made for churches in Europe at the time were very often sculptures, not paintings. Here you see a slightly later example, but you get the idea. Groups of wooden figures are inset in a shallow box-like space. As in this example, figures were usually painted. Van der Weyden is imitating this. He has made a painting that looks like an altarpiece with carved wood figures. Even though known to us mainly as a painter, he also worked adding the final paint to wooden and stone sculptures. It's also very likely that he designed sculptures that were carved in wood by others. It is clear that his work with the art of sculpture influenced what he decided to do in this case. He has imitated a multi-figure sculpture, which is what the public was used to seeing. Try to put yourself in the place of contemporaries who saw this. If you're expecting to see sculptures, these figures look amazingly real. They look like they're made of flesh, not painted wood. Their impact must have been very strong. Finally, I want to focus on the formal language of the deposition. Think of paintings as a sentence made up of different parts: the subject, the predicate, the different words and type of words used. Each person, each writer, uses language differently. The same is true with paintings. Let's look at some of the components of this one. The angles of the heads and bodies of the figures relate to each other. They form a pattern, a rhythm. The man and woman on the left and right of the image are not only a man and a woman, there are also brackets that enclose the entire composition with their postures. I have already mentioned the parallel drawn by formal means between the figures of Jesus and Mary. They dominate the composition. Notice the toe of Christ in the middle of this image. It nearly touches a white cloth above. Other similar points of contact can be seen in the painting. In this same image, we can see how the red sleeve of the woman barely touches a white vessel nearby. The same thing happens with the left hand of Christ. It nearly touches the dark headpiece next to it. Van der Weyden's creativity, his pictorial intelligence, made him intuit that by doing this he brought cohesion to the scene. As these points of contact echo each other, they bring different sections of the painting together. They also shape the way we perceive the scene. We look quickly and generally at some areas, and we stop our eyes in others. We experience connections of the type that I have described with a sense of discovery. A very few paintings in the entire history of art bring to us a sense of awareness. This is one of them. It seems to open up to us. It makes us feel that we have gained some insight into the language of art.